there's a strange injustice in music history. The first hip-hop group ever to go platinum, the ones who taught rap how to dress, how to perform, how to feel, they're barely mentioned when we talk about legends. John "Ecstasy" Fletcher stood on stages in a wide-brimmed Zorro hat, voice smooth as velvet, giving hip-hop its first taste of swagger and soul. Whodini crafted anthems that still ignite dance floors today. Yet somehow, this pioneer faded into shadows while others claimed the throne he helped build. How does that happen? How does a man who changed everything get forgotten by the very culture he created? If you love uncovering hidden legends like this, don't forget to like and subscribe to Legends Underrated and tell me in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? Let's rewind to June 7th, 1964. Brooklyn, New York. Bedford-Stuyvesant. This is where John Fletcher entered a world that didn't yet know what hip-hop was, but could already feel his heartbeat in every block party, every street corner, every soul record blasting from tenement windows. Brooklyn in the late 60s and early 70s wasn't kind. Poverty pressed down hard. Crime crept through alleyways. But creativity exploded from the concrete like wildflowers through cracks in pavement. Young John grew up surrounded by rhythm. Gospel harmonies floated from Sunday churches. Funk grooves bounced off brownstone walls. His family was working class, proud, disciplined. They believed in dreams, and John dreamed in rhythm. As a teenager, he gravitated toward those legendary block parties where hip-hop was being born. Back then, the DJ was the star. But John had something rare presence. That baritone voice, deep and commanding, like a preacher delivering gospel. People stopped talking when he spoke. He didn't need formal training. He had charisma you can't teach, can't fake. He watched DJs like Grandmaster Flash manipulate turntables, watched young MCs weave words over instrumentals. The energy was electric, addictive. But John noticed something else. He studied how George Clinton and Bootsy Collins turned fashion into performance art. Those funky hats, those outrageous outfits, it was theater. And John understood early, how you look can speak as loud as what you say. Brooklyn was shaping him into something special, even if the world didn't know it yet. By the early 1980s, Brooklyn had transformed into a creative storm. That's when John Fletcher crossed paths with Jaleel Hutchins. This wasn't just two kids meeting at a party. This was destiny clicking into place. Jaleel was a thinker, a writer who loved clever wordplay and storytelling. John was pure magnetism, deep voice, movie star confidence, that indefinable cool. When they started collaborating, something sparked. They hung around Manhattan recording studios, absorbing everything. John had already begun crafting his signature image: wide-brimmed hats, leather outfits, dark shades that gave him mystery. Together they envisioned something different from braggadocious rhymes and simple party anthems. They wanted sophistication. They wanted funk infused with street wisdom. So they named themselves Whodini, a nod to magician Harry Houdini. Mystery, illusion, transformation. Their demo tapes caught the attention of Jive Records, who paired them with producer Larry Smith, a genius who would later help shape Run DMC's sound. Larry recognized what made them special. Their music needed polish, funk, melody, something that could dominate both radio and dance floors. In 1982, they dropped Magic's Wand, one of the very first rap songs with a full-length music video. Produced by Thomas Dolby, Magic's Wand was funky, futuristic, and different. It announced that hip-hop could be sophisticated and playful. Two Brooklyn kids were about to reshape what rap could sound like. When Magic's Wand hit in 1982, it introduced a new vibe. Most rap songs were raw, aggressive, party-driven, but Whodini came with class. John "Ecstasy" Fletcher wasn't yelling into the microphone. He was gliding over beats with that baritone voice, calm and commanding. Beside him, Jaleel wrote verses that told stories. Together they had balance. Jaleel was the mind. Ecstasy was the presence. Larry Smith blended live instruments with electronic production, giving Whodini's music richness that stood out. Their debut album dropped in 1983, featuring Haunted House of Rock, which became one of hip-hop's first holiday anthems. But what truly set Whodini apart was image. When Ecstasy walked on stage in that wide-brimmed Zorro hat, black leather shorts, knee-high boots, and shades, crowds erupted. Nobody in rap looked like that. He brought glamour to a genre that had been all grit. Women screamed for him. Men wanted to be him. That hat became iconic. That voice became unforgettable. When they added Grandmaster D as their official DJ, it completed the trinity. By 1984, they were touring nationwide on the historic Fresh Fest tour, the first major hip-hop tour ever. While other acts tried to be the loudest, Whodini chose to be the smartest. Their lyrics had depth. Their beats had soul. Parents didn't mind their kids listening to Whodini. The music had messages, friendship, loyalty, love. But what came next would catapult them from respected to legendary. 1984, the year everything exploded. Whodini's second album, Escape, dropped like a bomb. It went platinum, making Whodini one of the first hip-hop acts ever to achieve that milestone. Press play on Escape, and the first thing that hits you is 5 minutes of funk. That beat, pure electricity. It opened every party, every skating rink, every high school dance. Fans still talk about it. One viewer commented, "5 minutes of funk is still my joint till this day." Ripped to an underrated legend. The track captured Whodini's formula: massive beats, sharp rhymes, and Ecstasy's baritone gliding like silk. Then came Friends. Man, that record hit different. Jalil's lyrics about betrayal and loyalty struck a nerve. Friends, how many of us have them? That line became a cultural proverb, quoted everywhere from playgrounds to sitcoms. Friends took hip-hop into emotional territory nobody had explored. It wasn't about bragging. It was about life. Everyone has felt the sting of trusting the wrong person. Ecstasy's delivery gave it weight. He didn't sound angry, he sounded wise, like an older brother giving advice. That's why Whodini connected across generations. Kids loved the groove. Adults heard truth. And just when you thought they couldn't top that, they dropped Freaks Come Out at Night. Funky, playful, slightly mischievous. The kind of song that transformed every dance floor into a movie scene. With Escape, Whodini weren't just making hits. They were creating moments. Each song felt cinematic. Critics praised its production. Fans couldn't get enough. The record sold over 1 million copies. Stories like these are why I built Legends Underrated, so make sure to subscribe for more untold tales that shape the culture we love. Whodini toured the world. On Fresh Fest, they shared lineups with Run DMC, LL Cool J, and the Fat Boys and held their own. One fan wrote, "They gave the greatest live show ever." That Zorro hat became a symbol. Ecstasy's look influenced later artists like LL Cool J and Slick Rick. Even their song structures were unique. Whodini wrote complete narratives with moral lessons. One Love taught appreciation. Big Mouth warned against gossip. By the mid-1980s, Whodini were household names. But while peers got celebrated in documentaries, Whodini often got left behind. Maybe it was the quiet professionalism they carried. They didn't chase drama, they just made great music. And here's the tragedy: Whodini did everything right. Yet somehow, history didn't give them their full due. By 1985 and 86, Whodini weren't just hip-hop, they were stars. Their music crossed formats. Their videos dominated television. The Escape album continued dominating charts, and its singles became anthems with crossover appeal. Ecstasy became one of rap's first recognizable frontmen. Fans called him hip-hop Zorro. Women loved him. Men respected him. When Whodini stepped on stage, it wasn't chaos, it was choreography. Grandmaster D cut records like a surgeon. Jalil delivered clever bars. Ecstasy commanded crowds with poise. The Fresh Fest tour in 1985 marked their breakthrough. They brought hip-hop to major arenas for the first time. These weren't just concerts, they were cultural milestones. People who attended still talk about those nights like sacred memories. In 1986, they released Back in Black. The album featured Funky Beat and One Love, both reinforcing their signature sound. One Love became another timeless anthem. The chorus, "One Love, you're lucky just to have one love," captured something universal. Ecstasy's performance is one of the smoothest moments in rap history. His delivery is calm but emotional, reflective but confident. By this point, Whodini's influence was everywhere. You could hear traces in Run DMC, Beastie Boys, early LL Cool J. They'd made storytelling and melody acceptable in rap, later perfected by Will Smith, Outkast, and Kanye West. They were pioneers. Whodini proved rap could be smooth, romantic, funky, and universal. For a brief, beautiful moment, they were untouchable. But as hip-hop evolved into harder, darker forms, the polish that made Whodini shine would soon make them seem out of place. By the late 1980s, hip-hop was transforming. The clean, polished sound that defined Whodini's era was suddenly overshadowed by something grittier. Public Enemy, N.W.A., and 2 Live Crew were rising. The tone shifted overnight. Groups like Whodini seemed like part of a different generation. Ecstasy felt that shift deeply. He'd built his career on charm, funk, and storytelling. But now rap had turned toward confrontation. The industry wanted controversy. Jive Records began prioritizing newer acts like A Tribe Called Quest and DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince. Whodini's classic sound started getting pushed aside. That kind of shift hurts. You go from pioneers to veterans, and the calls slow down. Even though Whodini released albums, radio airplay wasn't the same. They still had loyal fans, but the business was cold. There were internal challenges too. Jaleel and Ecstasy felt tension. Years of touring and label politics took a toll. To make things worse, the group wasn't seeing the money they deserved. Like many early hip-hop artists, their contracts were exploitative. Jive Records owned much of their publishing and masters. Whodini saw only a fraction of revenue their platinum records generated. You could be one of the first hip-hop groups to go platinum and still struggle financially. That's the cruel irony of being a pioneer. You help build the house, but you don't get to live in it. By the early 1990s, hip-hop was dominated by gangster rap. Whodini's funk-infused storytelling didn't fit. They tried to adapt, but it didn't make noise. The new generation didn't know them. Older fans had moved on. Still, Ecstasy didn't lose his love for music. He performed at old-school shows, occasionally reuniting with Jaleel and Grandmaster D. But those moments were bittersweet. The crowd sang Friends word for word, but the spotlight had moved on. As years passed, his life took quieter turns. At one point, he worked as a dispatcher for EMS 911 in New York. One fan shared, "My sister worked with Ecstasy. He was cool, humble, and always smiling." That humility was who John Fletcher really was. Even after cameras stopped rolling, he stayed genuine. But no matter how much time passed, one truth remained. Whodini's sound never disappeared. You could hear echoes in early 90s hip-hop and funk samples that shaped Dr. Dre and Outkast. Every time a DJ dropped 5 minutes of funk or someone quoted Friends, "How many of us have them?" the crowd reacted. The spirit lived on. After the lights dimmed, John "Ecstasy" Fletcher stepped away from fame. He didn't complain. He accepted it with grace. He never acted bitter, never threw shade. He understood music had seasons. By the late 1990s and 2000s, he lived mostly out of the spotlight. He'd pop up for old school shows, rocking that same hat and quiet confidence. Fans were always struck by how genuine he was. Humble, approachable, at peace. Even during years when Whodini wasn't in rotation, Ecstasy knew their music mattered. Whenever he performed Friends at throwback concerts, crowds erupted like it was still 1985. You could see that spark on his face. But life after fame isn't simple. Money from early contracts had dried up. While newer rappers cash million-dollar checks, pioneers like Ecstasy live modestly. The industry rarely takes care of its trailblazers. He also faced personal challenges fans rarely saw. Friends said he carried quiet reflection, seeing how far hip-hop had come and how easily some founders were forgotten. Still, he was proud. When artists like Pusha T and Outkast mentioned Whodini as influences, it meant the legacy survived. In his later years, Ecstasy lived quietly with family in Georgia. He stayed active, performing here and there, giving interviews celebrating hip-hop's roots. Proud but humble, reflective but never bitter. Then, on December 23, 2020, the world got heartbreaking news. John "Ecstasy" Fletcher had passed away at age 56. Fans flooded the internet with tributes, gone but never forgotten. Whodini gave us the soundtrack of our youth, ripped to an underrated legend. He may have left quietly, but his impact roared louder than ever. When news broke, the hip-hop community erupted in love and memories. Questlove, Jermaine Dupri, Chuck D called Whodini the blueprint. It was a rare moment when the world recognized how much one group and one man shaped music. The tributes weren't just nostalgia, they were about foundation. Before mega tours and corporate sponsorships, Whodini proved hip-hop could be professional, lyrical, stylish, global. They pioneered stagecraft, first rap group touring with full crews, dancers, lighting. They brought artistry to live performances. Every act after borrowed from that. Ecstasy left behind something subtle, presence. He showed charisma could be as powerful as bars. You didn't have to scream to be heard, just walk on stage with confidence. His calm power influenced generations. LL Cool J, Nas, Big Daddy Kane. That baritone became a prototype for cool and style. The Zorro hat, the leather, the boots. That wasn't fashion, that was identity. Before rappers had stylists, Ecstasy had vision. He brought showmanship, turning performances into visual statements. That balance of street and sophistication became a model. Musically, Whodini's fingerprints are everywhere. Friends and 5 Minutes of Funk have been sampled, referenced by artists across decades. Nas, Kanye, Jermaine Dupri, Pusha T, all nodded to their influence. Friends, how many of us have them? Has been quoted in sitcoms, advertisements, embedded into culture like a proverb. Larry Smith's production became foundation for how hip-hop fused funk and electronics. You can trace a line from Escape to West Coast production, G-Funk, Outkast, The Roots. Whodini proved rap didn't have to be all aggression. It could groove, reflect, breathe. Even in quieter years, their influence never faded. Songs popped up in movies, commercials, documentaries. For many fans, their music was a time machine. One fan wrote, "Whodini is one of my top 3 groups. When Ecstasy died, it felt like losing a friend." That's legacy's power. When people who never met you feel like they knew you. In 2018, Whodini received the I Am Hip Hop Icon Award at BET Hip Hop Awards. When they performed Friends, the entire crowd sang every word. Proof the music never truly went away. But Whodini still hasn't been fully immortalized. Fans call for Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction. They deserve to be in the Rock Hall, period. Hard to argue. They broke barriers before the industry was ready. When you look back at John "Ecstasy" Fletcher's story, it's hard not to feel both awe and heartbreak. Awe because this man helped build a movement. Heartbreak because his name still doesn't get shouted enough when we talk about hip-hop's greats. But that's what Legends Underrated is about, giving flowers to the ones who deserved them all along. Ecstasy wasn't just a rapper, he was an architect of cool. Before hip-hop had billionaires and brand deals, he showed rappers could have presence, charisma, sophistication. He proved you could be streetwise and stylish simultaneously. That hat, those shades, that deep voice, they were his identity. When fans talk about Whodini, they don't just remember music, they remember the feeling. That first beat of 5 Minutes of Funk that made the whole block move. that chorus from Friends that made people question loyalty, that smooth groove of One Love that made couples slow dance. Those songs carried energy, wisdom, warmth, just like Ecstasy. Even in death, he united generations. Fans, young and old, filled timelines with love. Whodini was the soundtrack of my youth. They don't make music like this anymore. They weren't just mourning an artist. They were remembering parts of their own lives. Maybe that's the truest immortality, when your art becomes memory for millions. Whodini's catalog is still fresh. Their influence echoes through every artist, mixing funk with storytelling, bringing class to stages, writing songs that make people think. Every time Friends plays, the crowd sings like a hymn. Every time Freaks Come Out at Night drops, the party jumps. That's not nostalgia. That's legacy. So when people ask, should Whodini be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? The answer isn't just yes, it's how are they not already there? They broke ground, set standards, proved rap could be fun, soulful, intelligent all at once. This twist shocked the world. And if you never want to miss stories like this, subscribe to Legends Underrated today. Ecstasy may be gone, but his impact echoes forever in every beat, every sample, every smile from someone remembering their first Whodini concert. So here's my question for you. Who's another pioneer from hip-hop's golden era that deserves their flowers? Drop their name in the comments. Let's keep these legacies alive together, because legends never die.